Hello again, everyone. Today we'll be still working with VMware for the PC. Today we'll be going over configuring IP address restrictions. We will configure anonymous authentication. We will use basic and Windows authentication, and we will configure an SSL certificate. I will be doing all of this on my 2020 Server 01. And to begin with, we will have to install the IIS services. And to do this, you go to Administrative Tools, you bring up your Server Manager. And then the left pane here, I'm going to click on Roles. And over in the context pane here, I'm going to click Add Roles. This is just the before you begin page, a little introduction. I'm going to go ahead and click next to skip that. And this is where you select the roles you want to install. We will be installing the IIS services. It is web server and then IIS in parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and check that. And you can see here that I've got a pop-up that says there are additional features required for the IIS server. And it tells you that you need the Windows Process Activation Service. If you get this pop-up, go ahead and click to add required features. You can see here that the web, now in my left pane here, I have the web server IIS, I have the role services, and I also have a confirmation dialog. Underneath the role services, I'm going to go ahead and install a couple other things that we will be using during this video. If you scroll down to security, I'm going to go ahead and check the box for basic authentication, and I'm also going to go ahead and check the box for Windows authentication, and then I'm going to go ahead and click next. And this here is just a confirmation screen. Once you look at it and see that you have everything that you want to go ahead and install on this round, go ahead and click install. Okay, my IIS services are now done installing, and we need to install, what we need to do now is install a feature for the IIS service. And we'll go back to our server manager. And in the scope pane, we will expand the roles node, and then underneath the roles we will click on web server IIS, and then in the context pane we will scroll down until you see role services, and then I'm going to click on add role services. And what we need to be adding is IP and domain restrictions. We'll scroll down under security, and then I'm going to check the box for IP and domain restrictions. Go ahead and click next. This is just a confirmation screen showing you what it is installing. It's once you see that everything checks out there, you have everything you need, go ahead and click install. Alright, I've got everything installed now. I'm going to go ahead and test our website connection. The website for me is going to be http server01.contoso.com. You can see here that I successfully connected to the website. Now I'm going to test the connection from my partner server, my server 02, and be typing in the same address here, server01.contoso.com. You can see here that we have successfully connected to our site from my partner machine as well. Now I'll be going to my server 01, and I'm going to change my website permissions to deny any IP address from connecting, and then we'll test the connection once again. To do this, you would go to Start, Administrative Tools, and then you will now have the Internet Information Services Manager. And once this screen comes up here, once your IIS Manager comes up, we will expand our 2020. We will expand our server node. And you can see here, after clicking on the server node, our middle menu here has changed to Server 01 Home. And to change our IP address restrictions and domain restrictions, we will double click on IPv4, address and domain restrictions. And then in the IPv4 address and domain restrictions box, over on the right side on the Actions pane, we will click on Edit Feature Settings. And here you have the Edit IP and Domain Restriction Settings. This is Access for Unspecified Clients. It's set to Allow. I'm going to change that to Deny. And you also have a checkbox to enable domain name restrictions. Go ahead and click OK. I'm going to bring up Internet Explorer again and try to connect to the site one more time. server01.contoso.com, and you can see here that we've got a HTTP error 403. I'm going to try now to connect to our site from my partner machine. And you can see here that we also have a 403 error. What's caused this is where I had went to the IIS Manager and I had changed our IPv4 address and domain restrictions to deny every IP address that tries to connect to our site. Now I'm going to add an allow entry to the IPv4 address and domain restrictions. To do that, over in the Actions pane, you click Add Allow Entry. In the box that pops up, the first one that's checked is a specific IPv4 address. You also have another option, which is IPv4 address range. You could type in multiple IP addresses and their subnet mask. I'm going to go ahead and check the top box again. Type in the IP address for my 01 machine. Go ahead and click OK. You can see in the middle pane here that our allow entry has popped up there. I'm going to open up Internet Explorer once again and try to connect to our site. You can see here that it was successful, and I'm also going to test this again from my partner server. And you can see here that we still get the 403 error. And the reason for this is we have our settings set. We have our IP and domain restriction settings set to deny any IP address that tries to connect. But I set an allow permission for the IP address of my 01 machine, and as of right now my 01 machine is the only one that can connect. It denied my server 02 request to connect to the website because our overall settings are set to deny. Now we're going to add another allow entry, except this time we'll be using the second option of IPv4 address range. I'm going to go ahead and type in my IP range of 10.1.1.0, and in the subnet mask I'm just going to type 24. Go ahead and click OK. You can see in the middle pane again that our allow entry was added. That's allowing any IP address of 10.1.1.0 with the subnet mask ending in .24. I'm going to go ahead and test the connection to the site from my 01 machine again. It's connected successfully. Now I'll be testing our access from our server 02 machine, which previously would not allow us access to the site. Go ahead and refresh that, and you can see here that by adding the IP address range allow entry, that we now have access to our site on our 2020 02 machine. Now I'm going to go back to my 01 machine, and in the IPv4 address and domain restrictions, once again I'm going to click on edit feature settings in the actions pane, and in the drop down box for access for unspecified clients, I'm just going to go ahead and select allow. Go ahead and click OK. Now we'll be going on with number 2 of configuring anonymous authentication. To do this, you will need the Active Directory Domain Services tool installed on, and once you have that done, you can now add users and remove users through Active Directory. We will be adding a internet user through Active Directory right now. To do this, you will go to Administrative Tools, and then after you install that, you will have a new option here called Active Directory Users and Computers. Go ahead and click on that. This is your Active Directory Users and Computers window. We're going to be adding a new user, so in your left pane you would expand your domain name. Mine is contoso.com, and then we'll click on the users folder in the left pane. We'll right click users, go down to new, select user. In the first name I'm going to be typing in IUSR, and the user logon name, our user logon name will be IUSR01 since I'm on my 01 machine. Go ahead and click next. Go ahead, key in your password, and you have a couple different options down here at the bottom. One is that is checked by default, is user must change password at next logon. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. You also have user cannot change their password, and then you have password never expires, which I'm going to go ahead and check. And then the last option is account is disabled. I'm going to leave that one unchecked. Go ahead and click next, and this is just a confirmation screen. It shows you the credentials you've put in. I'm going to go ahead and click finish. Now that we have our iUser01 account created, I'm going to be making the account a member of the iUsers group. To do this, in your left pane, underneath your domain name, you would click on the users folder, and then in the right pane, we're going to double click our iUser01. This brings up the iUser01 properties sheet, and we're going to be clicking on the member of tab. You can see here that he is already a member of the domain users, and to add it to the iUsers, we'll click on add, and this brings up the select groups box. You can see at the top it says select this object type. It says groups or built-in security principles. The next one is from this location, which shows my domain name of contoso.com, and in the bottom is where you would enter the group name or the object name you want to add it to. If you don't know the group name, you can always click on advanced, and then over on the right side, you would click Find Now, and you can see down here at the bottom, it shows up all the groups that are on it shows up all the groups that are on the server. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this out because I know the group that I need to add it to, and in the text box here I'm going to be typing in IIS underscore IUSR, and on the right side I'm going to go ahead and click check names. That way it make sure I've got the right one. I'm go ahead and click OK, and you can see here now that it shows he's a member of the IIS underscore iUsers, and it is a Contoso.com built-in members account. Go ahead and click apply, click OK, close that out. Before we continue on with using our different authentication modes, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have all of them installed. But to do this, you go to open up your server manager, and in the left pane you'd expand your roles, and then click on web server IIS, and then in the right pane scroll down until you see role services, and I'm going to go ahead and click on add role services, and then this brings up your select role services wizard. I'm going to scroll down until we see security. You can see here that I have basic authentication and Windows authentication installed, which I had installed at the beginning of the video, and I'm going to go ahead and select the digest authentication. Go ahead and click next. It brings up your confirmation screen, and once you see that everything is how you want it, go ahead and click install. Now we will be making the iUser account we just created. We will be making it the user that whenever people connect to the website, that'll be the user that they log on to. To do this, you have to open your IIS manager back up. Once you have it open, you expand your server node, and underneath that we'll expand our sites node, and then we'll click on default website, and then in the middle pane here we'll be double clicking on authentication, and you can see here underneath authentication here you can see the different types of authentication that we have. We have anonymous authentication, basic, digest, and Windows. We are going to be configuring this user for anonymous authentication, so we'll go ahead and double click. We'll go ahead and right click and click edit, and then the edit anonymous authentication credentials box comes up. You have a couple different options here. The specific user is already checked, and the one below it, the application pool identity, it allows, if you set this, you won't have to set any credentials. It'll still allow people to access the site, but it has lower level privileges. By selecting a specific user, which is what we're going to be doing, you'll be able to change the permissions. I'm going to go ahead and click the specific user. We'll click set. And the username we created was the IUSR, but we're going to be keying in our domain name in front of it. I'm going to be typing Contoso /IUSR 01 because it's on my 01 server. I'm going ahead and key in the password. Click OK. You can see that if you would have typed in something wrong, you would have had an error pop up. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now that we have done that, you can see here that anonymous authentication is enabled. Anonymous authentication is enabled by default, and you can see that the other three are disabled. And now that we have that done, we're going to go back to Active Directory users and computers, and on our iUser01 we're going to right click that, and we're going to select disable account from the context menu. You get a confirmation screen showing that it's been disabled, and the reason I'm doing this is to show that, to see if we'll be able to connect to our website, since we had set it up to log on to the site with the credentials of the iUser01. Go ahead and key in the site name. You can see here that we get a 401 error, which says it's an unauthorized error. And the reason for this is we had set the authorization credentials to use the iUser account, and then once we disabled it, it tries to log on to the site with the account, but since it's disabled, it's unauthorized. It won't let us access the site. Now that we've done that, we'll go back to our Active Directory users and computers. We'll right click on our iUser01, go ahead and enable the account, and get a confirmation telling you that the account has been enabled. Click OK. Now I'm going to go back to Internet Explorer. I'm going to go back to our site, and you can see here that it has successfully allowed us to get onto the site this time. Now we will be going on to using basic and Windows authentication. To do this, we will be going back to our IIS manager. You'll expand your server node and expand your sites node. We'll click on the default website. Then in the middle pane here, we'll double click authentication, and then we will click on basic authentication in the middle pane, and in the actions pane we will click enable. And what basic authentication does is it will ask you for your credentials whenever you're logging on. So we're going to go ahead and test this out. You can see here that it went ahead and allowed me into the site, and it did not ask me for my credentials. The reason for this is that anonymous authentication is still enabled, and the way the authentications work is, even if you have them all enabled, it will start with anonymous authentication first, then it will go to Windows authentication, then it will go to digest authentication, and then it will go to basic authentication. So even if you have Windows authentication enabled or any of the others, as long as you still have anonymous authentication enabled, it will always go with anonymous authentication first. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight anonymous authentication, and in the actions pane I'm going to click disable. And now you can see that the only authentication method I have enabled is basic. Once again, now I'm going to go to the Internet Explorer. I'm going to try to connect again, and you see this time that we get asked to type in our credentials. I'm going to try logging on with my student 1 username, and you can see that it didn't allow me. The reason for this is that yes, student 1 is a username for this computer, but we must use the credentials for our domain name as well. So we'll type in contoso / student 1, key in my password, and you can see here that it has successfully allowed us to connect to the site. And now we're going to enable Windows authentication. Just highlight Windows authentication, and in the actions pane we click enable. Now we'll go back to Internet Explorer. We're going to test the connection to the site again, and you see that we still get asked for our credentials, but the dialog box is different. It just, instead of telling us that at the bottom that it is using basic authentication, it just tells us that it's connecting to server01.contoso.com. So go ahead and key in my credentials. And you can see here that we have successfully entered the website. And now we're just going to enable anonymous authentication and disable the other two. Now we will be going on with step 4. We will be configuring an SSL certificate for our site. Now to do this, we will be going back to our Internet Information Services IIS Manager. And once you're in your IIS Manager, you will expand your server node, and then highlight your server node, and then in the middle pane here you'll see server certificates. Double click that, and then in the actions pane you will see you have a couple of different options. You can import, create a certificate request, which you'd want to do if you were if you're making a website and wanted to get a certificate from a reputable source. Complete the certificate request, create a domain certificate. We're going to be creating a self-signed certificate. Go ahead and click on that. This is the creating a self-signed certificate wizard, and this says specify a file name for the certificate request. Hi certificate, and click OK. And you can see here in our middle pane that underneath server certificate it now shows ours, shows the name, and it shows that it's issued to the server01.contoso.com. Now we'll be changing our site to use this certificate. We're still in the IIS Manager. You expand your server node, expand the sites node. We'll click on default website. On your default website home, on the right side underneath the actions pane, underneath the edit site, we'll be clicking on bindings. You can see here that the binding that is already there, underneath type, it is HTTP. To be able to use a certificate with your site, the type has to be a HTTPS, which is a secure site. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click add, and underneath type we're going to select HTTPS. And then now you notice now that we have another thing pop up. It says SSL certificate. You go ahead and click the drop down box, and you see the certificate that I had made called Hi certificate. Go ahead and click OK. Now you can see now that we have two different bindings for this site, an HTTP binding and an HTTPS binding. I'm going to go ahead and close that, and then back on the default website homepage we'll click on SSL settings. And what this lets you modify the SSL settings for the website. And we're going to click on require SSL, and we're also going to check the box to require 128-bit SSL. And what the 128 means is it just refers to how many characters that the certificate will have. And underneath the client certificates, we'll just leave that checked as ignore. Go ahead and click apply, and get a little dialog box there. It says the changes have been successfully saved. And we're going to go ahead and open up our Internet Explorer, and then I'm going to type in HTTP server 01.contoso.com, and you can see here that we get a 403 error. It says forbidden. The page we're trying to access is secured with secure socket layer. So that means that our certificate is working. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try connecting to the site again, but this time I'm going to type in the HTTPS site. And you can see here that it has successfully let us connect to the site. And then now you notice I'm going to go ahead and go to my partner server. And now I'm going to open up Internet Explorer. I'm on my server 02. And first I'm going to try and connect using the HTTP heading. You can see here that we get a 403 error. Access is denied. So I'll try it once again using the HTTPS heading. And we get a security alert that says you're about to view pages over a secure connection. I'll go ahead and click OK. And now you can see here it says it did not allow us to connect. It says there's a problem with this website security certificate. Said that the certificate presented by the site was not issued by a trusted certificate authority. Go ahead and click continue to this site. And you can see that by clicking OK to continue on to the site, that it has let me in, but you notice that my address bar is red. It says, and it also says certificate error. And if you click on that, it says it's an untrusted certificate. The reason for this is that it's a self-signed certificate that we had made, and it was not made from it was not obtained from a trusted certificate authority. And this concludes the how-to video for lab 6 with VMware.